Hi, friends. Okay, in this episode, we're going to be talking about anatomy and alignment. Mostly alignment just through an anatomical perspective. So, if anything's a little confusing, I'm going to try and be slow about it. I would say normally to just stop me and ask me a question, but this is a podcast, so I can't do that. But if after the episode you're still like, what the heck? Please send me a message or comment because I would love to talk to you about it a little more. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the alignment that I teach my students on their first lesson. So if you end up booking a lesson with me, we will be doing this in our first lesson. So this is juicy, people. I'm giving this away for free. Okay, free 99. So the first thing is I want to explain the importance of alignment. So I like to talk about alignment over the word posture. When we think of posture, we think of like, quote unquote, standing up straight. And a lot of times people will manipulate and maneuver their body in a way that doesn't feel good and is not natural in order to appear like they are, quote unquote, upright. But in reality, what we really need to do is follow the natural curves of the spine and the rest of the body. And everybody's body is different, so this looks different on everyone. That's why posture is kind of problematic, because they kind of want everyone to look the exact same way. And I remember, like for me, I have very rounded in shoulders. So people would always be like, you're hunching. And they would try and get me to stand up straight. And what they were really doing was making me put so much work in, flexing my upper back, trying to keep my shoulders not turned in. But in reality, that's just like an issue I have to fix. I think it's a fixable issue, but it's just something that is always like that. And in reality, I was cutting off so much of my lung capacity in the back because of how much I was trying to overcorrect. So don't love posture, don't love stand up straight. We are going to scan your body from toe to head and get it in the place that's best for you. So it may feel different than what you normally do. I'm not asking you to just do what you normally do. It may not be that, but it's just going to be like an enhanced version and the most efficient version of the way your body would naturally want to stack on top of one another. Okay, so first we're talking the feet. Now, feet are shoulder width apart, but this is not aligned with the outside of the arm or the outside of the shoulder, but instead with the armpit or the joint that connects your leg to your torso. So another way to think of it, this is more of a yoga thing, is 1 to 2 fists apart. Your feet should be 1 to 2 fists apart. So for me, for example, that was actually way closer together than I was doing. I was looking like a tripod doing shoulder width apart because I was aligning my feet with what I thought was my shoulder. But it's really the joint, not the shoulder itself, not the protruding part. Okay, so next thing is your knees. Now, people say knees slightly bent, but what I really want to say is knees not locked. Because when I would do knees slightly bent, I would be like, okay. And I would slightly bend my knees. And I was really bending them because I heard bend. So I bent them. So a lot of times when people would say, slightly bend your knees, I would bend them and then I would feel my quads and my shins, I think, activated because I was trying to bend, like as if I'm doing a wall sit. Obviously, I wasn't like bending all the way down, but the second you bend your knees to the point where your legs are activated, it's too far because now you have to do all this work. Now, of course, those muscles are really good for singing, so sometimes we do want to do that in certain scenarios, but if that's just where you are at all times, you're going to get so tired and your legs are going to hurt. So it's just not locked. I don't think you need to bend them, just not locked. Okay, now let's talk pelvis. This is my favorite. So there is a whole school of thought that like really hates the idea of singing having anything to do with the pelvis. And then there's a whole nother school of thought where they think it's like the saving grace of singing and that singing and the pelvis are super related. I'm kind of in the middle. I don't think it's like this like magic fix, but I also don't think it's unimportant. So this is how I figure out how to maneuver the pelvis for your perfect alignment for your own body. What I want you to do is just stand how you would normally and take a really deep breath and feel where in your body you expand the most. If you say the like lower abdominal front area, like the tummy area, then, and in both scenarios, what we're gonna try and do is sort of split the difference so that we get more of a 360 expansion. So if you said the front of your body was expanded, you are actually going to tuck your tailbone slightly underneath. This is almost like you're about to sit, or if you've ever done a squat or a deadlift, on the way up, right before you're done, when you kind of like flex the glutes and you tuck under, that's that feeling. Think of it as like tucking under. And then I want you to try and breathe again and see if you unlocked your lower back. If the answer is yes, beautiful. So now you have the choice of making that your permanent alignment, where that's just gonna be how you stand when you sing, or you can engage this sort of tilt while you sing in certain passages where you need extra support or something like that. Now, if you tried it and you're like, still doesn't work, you might want to just split the difference of that and do it a little bit less. Now, if not, let's move on to the other option. So if you said that maybe your back expanded the most, or maybe even like the really upper part of your chest, what we're actually going to do is tilt the pelvis back the other way. So we're going to slightly arch the back, tilt the pelvis up and back instead of down and out. And then take a breath again and see if you get more expansion in the front. Now, this is yoga stuff. I learned this in a Yoga for Singers class, where in yoga, if you've ever done cat-cow, for example, when you inhale, you arch your back, and when you exhale, you, what is the word? You do the opposite. You make it like a dome with your back. And in yoga, those are the two highest forms of inhaling and exhaling, those ways that your body is. So we can emulate that in singing in two ways. We can either do that at a smaller scale on the inhale and exhale, or we can get our body to its most neutral position in the center of those two so that we are most efficient on both inhale and exhale. So that's kind of the idea behind this. Now, what it's not is you using your muscles that you use to poop. Sometimes I do say to do that, but all of those like muscles in the nether regions, it's neither here nor there for me as to whether it's like a singing unlocker. So that's not really what I'm talking about. This is mostly for inhalation and a little bit of exhalation, but mostly inhalation. So that's the pelvis. Now we're going to the chest and the upper back. Now you're gonna give yourself a hug and take a deep breath. And you should feel your upper back just beautifully expand. It feels so good. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna just keep breathing in and out over and over, and you're going to slowly lower your arms at the same time. Now the goal is to have your chest, your front, and your upper back both expanding. But just so you know how it feels, I actually want you to go too far the other way and get to that quote unquote good posture look and overarch the upper back and see how you went from super expanded to not at all. So what we want is somewhere beautifully in the middle where your upper back expands and your chest expands. We can't neglect one. So for me, for example, this actually did feel quite hunched from all the years of overcorrecting to be super open in the chest. I neglected my back. So I actually feel a little bit more on the hunched side when I do this. Other people say they feel more open and more uplifted. It's really dependent on your body and how you naturally stand. Some people say they feel no difference. It really depends. And then the last thing is head square. So the things that are the most no for me are a protruding chin or a chin that makes a double chin. Those two things can really make it hard to sing. But other things like looking left, looking right, looking up, looking down, those are things that we do if we're performers, right? If we have staging, we're doing that. So you don't necessarily need to make looking up always your singing posture. We don't need that. Or, I said posture, singing alignment. But it's not like, oh my God, if you lift your head, something bad is going to happen. That is not true. Especially because actually, this is a whole other episode, but with belting techniques, sometimes you do need to sort of lift the chin, pull the head back a little. I know, crazy, right? So that's alignment. This should help with inhalation and exhalation, which is singing. Singing is exhalation. So let me know if this worked for you or if you liked this, or if anything was confusing. And if you like this podcast, give it 5 stars, leave me a comment, leave a review, share it with your friends so we can keep it going. All right, bye.